Welcome back to the Beauty Lab podcast. I'm Velia, and this is my co-host Monina.
Hello.
Today I have the opportunity to pick Monina's brain about makeup. So I wear a lot less makeup than I used to wear.
Okay.
Like even 5 to 10 years ago. Like I was wearing all the eye makeup, eyeliner, eyeshadow.
Yeah.
You know, I experimented a lot more with like much bolder eye looks and a lot deeper contour. I mean, I know that was also like more of the trend.
That was a trend, yeah.
But I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm wearing a lot less makeup. And in my mind, at least, it looks better for me. I focus a little bit more on like skincare and that kind of stuff. Do you think it's just because I don't know what I'm doing anymore? Like I haven't evolved. I'm so scared that I'm, just turning into that person that only knows how to do that one eyeliner technique. Welcome to the Beauty Lab podcast, your drive time resource for all things beauty, health, and wellness. We're your hosts and favorite beauty nerds, Monina and Velia.
Join us as we debunk myths, explore the latest trends, and dive deep into the science behind your favorite products. We'll interview industry experts and answer your burning beauty questions in 30 minutes or less. I think you are evolving because your makeup, your skin, everything looks better. And yes, to answer your question, as we age, the key is less is more.
Okay, so I'm on the right track.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because as we age, you have to remember youthful, glowing skin, right?
Yeah.
Is what we're trying to achieve.
Totally.
But as we age, our oil glands, actually because of hormones, medication, environment, our skin starts to have less oil. So even if you had oilier skin like myself, you'll notice as you get into your 40s and 50s and 60s, you don't even produce as much oil anymore. So that suppleness is almost gone, right? So that's why when you mention skincare, that's actually another key.
Okay.
I know makeup is one thing, but to me, they go hand in hand. Because you never want to apply makeup without what we call prepping the skin.
Yes,
right?
That's the majority of my routine is layers and layers and prepping and eye gels and all these things. And then it's literally 4.5 minutes of makeup.
Well, and you're right. As we age, what used to take a majority of our time putting makeup on should be less time and more time devoted to our skincare, to our routine. Because if you think about it, even if you're I look at makeup as when a painter looks at his color palette or her color palette, right? The only way that final picture is going to look flawless or perfect is if it started on a really nice canvas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So to me, our skin, our face is the canvas. So if you're not prepping it and taking care of it prior to putting on the makeup, the makeup is only going to look as good as the canvas you put it on, basically, right?
Yes.
So when I go and I do special event makeup or I do bridal makeup, you can ask all my clients. I spend so much time just on the skincare prep. Because most of the time, majority of people, even in the younger brides, they're very dehydrated. Their pores are enlarged, or they've got just so much dead skin buildup that even if I tried to put makeup on them without prepping their skin, the makeup wouldn't last and it just would look terrible. It doesn't, because we're always trying to achieve that nice, flawless, even skin, right?
Right.
So, and this is what I always tell everybody is, I don't care how great your eye makeup looks or how beautiful the lip color is. If your face, the majority of it, if your foundation looks cracking and grayish or dry, or you've got that line of demarcation, it doesn't matter what your eyes look like or your lips look like, because the majority of what they're seeing looks awful.
Right.
So yes, so to answer your question, as you get older, less is more, because I want you to spend more time on prepping the skin. So when we talk about the canvas, it's having that nice, hydrated, supple canvas before you start slapping things on.
Okay.
You know? Yeah. And then as we get older, we do want to use less, because it it doesn't feel great anymore.
It doesn't.
Right?
No. And I'm
All
like,
that
in my mind, I'm like, I'm just lazy.
Yeah, no.
But I do feel like when I put more makeup on, because sometimes you go out and you're like, oh, I'm going to just spend more time putting more makeup on. Sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, what did I do? Why did I do
get
that?
To the point where you're like, I just look like a clown. Like I'm putting more and more on there when it's like, what is our objective? Makeup should...
To look young.
To look younger, to look fresh and radiant, right?
Yes.
So paying attention to the skin prior to putting on all your makeup will solve a lot of problems. Now, the other thing too is as we age, our pores get bigger, right?
And so that's not just a myth.
No. Well, okay, let me explain to you. We are born with the pore size that we have.
Okay.
The pores are actually connected to an oil gland.
Yes.
So the bigger the oil gland, the bigger the pores. Mm-hmm. So usually people with oilier skin will tend to have bigger pores because they have bigger oil glands.
Oh.
Okay? People with drier skin tend to have tiny pores, which means they have less oil, right? So then as you get older, we all start like ending up more on the drier side.
Even though our pores can get bigger?
Well, the reason so that's a little bit of a myth. So we're gonna bust a myth here. So you are born with the pore size that you have.
Okay.
Because your oil glands don't change.
Okay.
Okay. But what can happen is over time, if you're not cleansing your face.
Okay.
If you didn't watch our other episode about cleansing your face and how it can age it, please watch that episode. But for your pore sizes, if you're not washing your face consistently and you're constantly more buildup is starting to happen in the pores, they literally build up in the pores. So if you look at your pores from like a side view, it looks like this. Well, the more debris that is in that pore, our skin is elastic. So the bigger the pore is going to start to enlarge.
Oh, I see.
Because of all the buildup in the pores. So that's why it's important to, when you go to cleanse your skin, you're actually leaving it on for a good 60 seconds, or even 2 minutes, depending on how oily you are, because the cleanser needs that much time to break through all the oils and go into the pores and actually liquefy the debris. If you're not doing that, over time your pores just get bigger and bigger because the elasticity of the skin just keeps growing and growing. So it could appear like your pores are getting bigger, but they're just expanded.
Got it.
Right?
They're just filling up.
They're filling up. So once you clean it and it bounces back, it almost looks like, oh, my pores got smaller, but in fact you just eliminated all that debris that caused that enlarging of the pores. So you can't technically change your pore size, you can just bring it back to what it was originally. So hope that makes sense. So now keep that in mind now when we're doing foundation.
Yeah.
Imagine our skin is an orange peel.
Okay.
It's very porous. You see all the little dots in an orange, right? So what happens if you've got a really dry area on the orange and you've got all these little divots and you go to pour on foundation?
Oh yeah, no.
What is it going to do?
That's just going to it's going to look chunky on the
top.
Right,
and it's going to fill in the holes.
Yeah.
Fill in your pores essentially. So now you have just accentuated something you're trying to cover up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So another thing that you want to incorporate, it's not really considered skincare, but it's a way to prep the pores so that you don't have the defect. And that's by adding something called a primer onto the skin. Okay, so primers come in different forms. Some primers can be more hydrating. So if you have drier skin, that's why it's really important that you understand what your skin type is, right?
Okay, right.
That way you can choose the right formulation. So with a primer, if you have drier skin, you want a primer that has some more like a hyaluronic acid or something that's hydrating. If you have oilier skin, they do have primers that will actually mattify the skin. So when you see the word mattify, it's to help eliminate the shine. Right? So imagine now putting a primer, and now the primer, which literally has no color, the primer is now filling in those little divots.
Yes.
Right? So filling in your pores. And now what do you have? Now you have a smooth. Now instead of an orange, your skin looks like an apple. Right? And now you put on the foundation. And now when you put the foundation on, you don't have to pack it on.
Yes.
It's just a nice film. Because to me, foundation is more for helping with maybe some discoloration, because of course as we age we start to get a little bit like the pigmentation, or like me, I still have my acne breakout, so I'll have like a little bit of a post-inflammatory pigmentation that I want to cover up. Right? So we don't want to pack on the foundation, we just literally want to use foundation and concealer just to kind of even out the skin.
Okay.
Right? As we age. So even as you age, you don't need to put foundation all over your face. Use it more or less as a way to like eliminate discoloration, or just
balance
it all out. Exactly. So yeah, so that's my biggest tip for helping people with larger pores, let's say, to make the foundation look a little less cakey and enlarging the pores, so to speak.
So I know, like, for me, something that I have changed dramatically with my makeup, not just with my skin prep and everything, but I went from using a lot more like powder based things to when I was younger to now using more liquid, and I tend to go for like the dewier looking stuff. You mentioned mattifying. So like when I use my primer, and by the way, I go back and forth with primer, no primer, because in my mind, like I forget when I've been using primer. Like it's not that I forget to use it; it's that I forget how awesome the result is. After you use a primer, because like I'm like, I gotta get out of the house, whatever. So I'm like, I'll just tone and moisturize, and then I'll throw my liquid foundation, which is like a dewy, like not super heavy coverage foundation. I use the IT Cosmetics Nude Glow. And because it kind of acts like skincare a little bit, because it has SPF and all this stuff, and it's liquid.
There are foundations that have skin ingredients into it. So again, as you age, that's going to be really a nice bonus.
I tend to just think like, oh, I don't need to add all these other things, but I do, because I notice like halfway through the day, if even halfway, that I look at my makeup and I'm like, why do I look so blotchy? Like I wasn't even sweating, or was I wiping my face? No, dum-dum, like you didn't use your primer today.
Primer, or maybe you forgot to set it, maybe too?
I definitely didn't set it. Because if it's a day where I was too lazy to use primer, I also didn't do anything to set it. So like, in the past, I was using more mattifying foundations, heavier coverage foundations. I was using powder contour, powder blush, powder setting powder, right? And now I would set everywhere. And now I do like the liquid foundation I'm telling you about. I do liquid contour. I do liquid or cream, stick contour. I do liquid blush. I do like everything's like liquid, because it's like I don't want to look cakey. And when I set, I only set certain areas. I don't set my whole face. And by set I mean like I use a translucent powder. I'm not like caking powder all over my
you're setting. It's a setting powder.
So
translucent.
So I'm okay.
Oh no, you're good. I mean,
I'm doing it right.
Okay, so to answer your question, these would be kind of like the steps. That you want to do.
Give us the steps.
Okay. So step one is you want to prep the skin. So obviously you're going to cleanse, tone, and moisturize like you normally do. Okay. Then you're going to put on your foundation or your primer first. Right. And then your foundation. And then if you're going to use concealer under the eyes, or maybe concealer to help with any pigmentation issues or redness, because concealer can cover both. Right? So then after the concealer, then that's all wet. That's all wet. So now what you want to do is you want to set it. So if you did put foundation all over your face, using a translucent powder is a great way to set the makeup, because whether you have oily skin or dry skin, as soon as you put something wet on the skin, it's going to continue to emulsify. It'll move, because the heat of your body will continue to warm it up and become emulsified, and then it'll move around. So putting just a little bit of that setting powder or the translucent powder, and then a setting spray to set it all in.
I don't do that.
You need to have So the setting spray. And I do have a hot tip for you. All right. Once you're done with the setting powder, you're going to choose a setting spray. Well, there's different setting sprays out there.
Yes.
So if you're someone who has much drier skin, because we're talking about more mature skin, right?
Right.
So let's say you're mature skin, but you've always had dry skin. Now it feels even drier, especially in the winter months. I would choose a primer and a setting spray that is more illuminating and brightening, right? And
that makes
has
sense.
hydrating ingredients. So that's what I would suggest for the drier skin type.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as I've aged, like I said, even though my oil glands don't produce as much oil, I still have oil. I still have a little bit of shine. So I choose a setting spray that's going to mattify my skin.
Okay.
Still. So again, it's why it's so good to understand, do I have drier skin, combination skin, oily skin, what have you. That way you can then choose the right primers and the right foundations and everything else that you're choosing for yourself.
So I actually had no idea that there were luminizing setting sprays.
Yep, there are.
And that's probably, I'm sure our listeners are.
I'm sure you've all tried it out. Like the one that I like, that I tend to use in my bridal kit, is the Morphe illuminating setting spray.
Oh.
So that one's really nice. And again, even though I have oily skin, I've actually done both.
Okay.
Like I'll do my regular setting spray to kind of set everything in, but then throughout the day, if I need a refresher, I'll even put on some type of a facial mist or the illuminating setting spray, just to kind of freshen up my skin a little bit, because it's not going to hurt the makeup.
Yeah.
You're just setting it a little bit more.
Okay.
So, but technically you don't need to set more than once.
Okay.
It really is good
So
to go.
remind us again, you do your normal skincare prep,
Right.
then you do your primer, then you do your foundation,
Yep.
then you do your translucent powder,
Translucent.
and then you set.
And then you set.
And that's it. You don't set again.
You don't set again. Think of setting spray as like hairspray,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
got that.
once you're done styling your hair, then you spray it.
Okay.
Right? With your hold spray.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what setting spray is. Think of it as hairspray for your makeup.
Okay.
So.
But you don't set. You set before you do blush or contour or eye makeup or.
You can do both.
Oh, you can.
I've done where I've set the makeup, let it dry,
Okay.
and then I'll go back in and do other things. But technically, it'd be best if you just went ahead and did everything and then set it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But again, throughout the day, you can use your facial mist or your illuminating setting spray and just kind of give yourself a nice once over, to just give yourself a nice little pick-me-up during the day if you want. But putting on that setting spray will assure you that it's not going to look blotchy or it's going to move around by midday.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything more that you want to talk about with illuminating products versus mattifying products
Okay.
with aging?
Okay. So when you look at foundations, primers, things like that, it'll either say, it might say illuminating or just hydrating versus mattifying.
Okay.
So you just need to understand what the outcome is for each one. Illuminating is exactly what it says, is to give you that nice glow. Whereas I know women in their 40s and 50s and maybe even 60s that still have really oily skin.
Yes.
That's the last thing they want.
Yeah.
Is this shine on their skin.
Yeah.
So that person is going to tend to do better with mattifying products.
Okay.
So that's the difference between illuminating and mattifying. Is whether you want that glow or you want more of a matte finish. So knowing your skin type is going to help dictate which formulations you're going to use.
Okay.
Now keep in mind a liquid, right? A liquid foundation is what I recommend for women who have more mature skin, but the finish can be different.
Okay.
So you can apply it and it's liquid, but does it finish into an illuminating finish, or does it end up becoming a mattifying finish?
Yes, it's because sometimes liquid foundations will dry like powdery.
Yes, it will have a powder finish. And that's what I use because I still have an oily sheen by the end of the day. Not as much as when I was a teenager, but that's why I tend to go more towards mattifying finishes for me. So, but remember, the whole goal is younger looking skin tends to look more refreshed, more hydrated.
Right.
And so for me, even though I still want a mattifying finish, how I can achieve that glow is through things like luminizers.
Okay.
So you can put luminizers like on, you've seen it.
Yeah,
It's like
like
the
highlighters.
Little highlighter, like on the cheeks, the bridge of the nose.
Yeah, I love me some highlighter.
Yes. Because even though your skin may be on the drier side, if you add a little bit of that to those like the planes of your face, basically, like your forehead, the bridge in your nose, and your cheeks, it immediately gives you that nice luminosity to the skin. So
that
then
dewiness.
The dewiness, exactly. The dewiness without looking oily or shiny.
Right.
Right. So a luminizer anyone can use, I feel, in my opinion. You just have to do it right.
Yeah, and I have to say, because you've gotten me on like such a good like skincare routine, that I do naturally have more oily skin.
Yeah.
So you would think that, or I would think that I would want to go with the more mattifying look, but I love the dewier look.
Yeah.
But there is like, you do have to really like hone in on your skincare routine.
Yep.
So that dewiness isn't actually just oiliness.
Yes. Yeah.
There is a difference.
Yeah, and that's why I don't even like to say, I like to say dewy or illuminating.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you say shiny,
right? Yeah.
people think oily.
Or they think glittery.
Yeah. And you don't want oily or greasy. I mean, that's the last thing you want on your skin. But utilizing these formulations properly, you can have that nice balance. So yeah.
Awesome. We do have a question from our listener.
Okay.
Her name is Carmen. She's from San Jose.
Okay.
And she wants to know how to prevent, like when you're doing your eye makeup, how to prevent your eyelids from looking crepey.
Crepey, not creepy?
Yeah, crepey, not crepey and creepy. I don't want to look crepey or creepy.
Okay. So again, just like your foundation, you really have to prep the skin. So if you tend to have really dry eyes, first of all, you got to make sure, like, talk to your dermatologist, make sure you don't have like topical dermatitis or eczema or something.
Okay.
Because if that's what's causing the crepiness in the skin, you want to talk to your doctor about that.
Okay.
If that's not the case, if it's just your skin is aging.
Right, exactly. It's just now your eyelids are a little saggy.
Yeah, yes, they're starting to do that creepy thing. The important thing is, again, you want to make sure you're using your eye creams. You're doing kind of like a lymphatic drainage every night, making sure that you're hydrating the eyes, but also helping with circulation.
Okay.
Because if we don't have proper circulation around the eyes, they tend to get dull and dry. And actually, we start to see some dark circles happening because of poor circulation around the eyes.
Okay.
So once you prep it and take care of the health of the eyelids, now what you can do is I would recommend a primer. Just like I talked about the primer on the face. But this primer, what it's doing is a couple of things. Number one.
So sorry, not to interrupt you. We're talking about a specific eye makeup eyelid primer.
Yes. So there are primers for the face.
Okay.
But particularly if you have crepiness happening on the lids, you want to choose a primer that is specifically for the eyelids. Because anytime you talk about the eyes, you have to remember it's different from the rest of your face because it's a lot thinner.
Yes.
But moving the skin around the eyes too much, you can lose the elasticity in the skin, and so the eyes are going to start to look older quicker.
Okay.
So you have to be really gentle around the eyes. So with that said, you want to use products that are only meant for the eyes. So I'm talking about eye gels, eye creams should be the only thing that touch your eyes. And then an eye primer, so a primer for the eyelid. And when I say eyelid, I mean like this entire lid right here, okay? So you would start with that. You prep the skin, you put your eye primer on. What this is gonna do is several things. Number one, it's going to, because as we age, if you notice our eyelids, they start to look the skin starts to look either grayish or it just starts to lose its luminosity. It starts to lose it's like the pigmentation looks really off, almost grayish. So if you ever notice, like you put on eyeshadow and it just never looks like it does in the pan.
Yeah.
Right? So what it's doing is the discoloration from the eyelids is actually bleeding through the shadow.
Oh
so
my gosh.
If you're putting on a primer, it's almost like creating that nice even canvas. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is not something I ever really considered. You think about that in regards to your lips. Like
Yes,
when you're
yes.
doing like lipstick and whatever.
Yeah.
But your eyelids.
Yes, same thing. Yes, because there's discoloration. Like I remember my mother-in-law, she's very fair skin, and her skin was so light and so thin, you can almost see, she almost looked blue.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she had, you could see like the veins and stuff, and you could see that on her eyelids, so they'd be like a little bit reddish tone, a little bluish tone. No matter what color eyeshadow I put on, it always looked muddy. So as soon as I evened out the skin tone on the eyelids with a primer, now it looked nice and even, and the color looked true to form. So it looked like it did in the pan.
Yep,
so
makes sense.
That'll also help with the pigmentation of your shadow.
Okay.
Okay, so that's number one. Number two, now it's going to also give the shadow something to grab onto, because as the day goes on and we start to like perspire, or again, the heat of our body temperature starts to emulsify everything on our face. Same thing happens with your eyeshadow, especially if you're using like a cream shadow or something like that. It starts to move around, and you start to see this at the end of the day, the creasing.
Yes.
So that's because there's nothing there keeping that shadow from emulsifying and moving around.
Okay.
So it always ends up in the crease, because as we're blinking, everything's moving to the center of the lid. So then you have that crease at the end of the day. So the primer gives the shadow something to grab onto, and it kind of stays put. It doesn't move around.
Yeah. When I think of an eyeshadow primer, I think of it for exactly that purpose.
For that, so it doesn't move around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's great. I mean, even if that's all it did, but if it evens the skin tone out, now the makeup look.
I guess I just haven't gotten to that age yet. Or I just haven't used eyeshadow in a while.
So I think for me, the crepiness tends to look more enhanced because the eyelids are just dehydrated. You haven't properly prepped the skin. You don't have that nice, even skin tone because you don't have the primer on. And then also, as we age, I would try to stay away from things that are a little too, how do I say it? You want to stay away from glitters. You want to stay away from, you know, shimmer. You don't want, a little shimmer is okay, like a little bit, but try to avoid it like in the crease area for sure. That'll definitely make your eyes look very crepey, because it's going to enhance all the crepiness in that area, right?
Yeah,
so,
it does do that.
So for as we age, I would actually prefer you stick with more matte colors with a little bit of shimmer placed properly, maybe like a little bit on the lower lids just to open up the eyes, but never in the crease.
And never like the main color.
It should
like
not
a
be
shimmer.
the main. Yeah, it should be like a little bit of a highlight, just like we talked about the luminizers, right? It's just like the planes of your face. Same with your eyes, just a tiny bit, like maybe in the tear ducts or a little bit on the lower lid, just to accentuate like where the lash line is. But that's about it. You don't want to overdo it with the shimmers and the glitters. Yeah.
Well, I hope that answered your question, Carmen.
Well, that was a long answer. But basically, the answer is primer.
Basically the answer is skincare, primer, and stay away from shimmer.
Or too much shimmer, or too much like the glitter type of like shadow.
So. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, you were at my house and we were talking about these different things that we see on TikTok, and and I was on TikTok and I bought this product. It was the Peter Thomas Roth Instant Firm Face Tightener.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so basically, it's like after you put your skincare on, like this is kind of like a primer. But it doesn't act like a primer, but that's like in place of a primer, but it's supposed to tighten your face. Right. So like any kind of fine lines like disappear. It like kind of fills in all the fine lines, and it actually pulls your face. It actually does work. So I used it, and I was kind of amazed that it actually did work. However, I had a little bit of trouble because on the box it says to apply it exactly the way I applied it, and then if there's any excess, you're supposed to like gently like wipe it off. And I did that, and there really wasn't much excess. And I was like, wow, like this really does like tighten my face. but I couldn't wear makeup on top of it because it just, anything I put on top of it would re-wet it.
Right.
And then it would like pill, like it would peel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was just no way I could not figure out for the life of me how to make it work with makeup.
Yeah. With makeup.
So did you happen to try it? And
so she gave it to me, and I thought, okay, there's got to be a way for it, because it does say on the box you can put foundation on. So what I noticed was I did leave it on for however long they say to let it dry.
Yes.
But exactly to your point, what you said, as soon as something wet went on it, it did start to move around. So what I did is I worked with a couple of different things. One day I used a sponge, another day I just used my hands, another day I used the brush. When I used the brush and my fingers, I tried to put on a very thin amount, and that seemed to work as far as it didn't peel off right away. And then I did my setting powder and my spray, just like we talked about. But by midday, if I went to touch it at all, like up here, like places where your face is moving a lot, I noticed it did start to peel. So my recommendation is, if you're using it for the tightening effect, great. It totally works.
It does.
It does. But if you're using it in place of a primer, it's really not, if you're going to use it with foundation, I just don't see a way to utilize it as a primer and then use foundation over it. The only other thing I could think of that might work, which I didn't do because I have oilier skin, so I don't just do powder. You can try using a pressed powder foundation instead of it being wet, because you're right. I think the problem was every time you put something wet on top of it, it reconstitutes it and it starts to move around again. So I mean, I could try to just do like a pressed powder maybe over it and see if that works. But yeah, I mean, it does the tightening.
I think you're being nice.
Well, the Peter Thomas Roth, it does tighten.
It does.
That was
you just can't wear makeup on top of it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, if you're gonna wear makeup, then you're gonna have to choose a different primer.
Yeah.
Instead of that. But if you just want that for the tightening effect, go for it. It does work. So.
Okay, well, that is all the time we have for today. That flew. I'm Velia.
I'm Monina.
And until next time, keep experimenting with your beauty routine.